Welcome to The Circle of Trust, honest insights and proven strategies for predictable law firm growth.
Welcome to the Circle of Trust, honest insights and proven strategies for predictable law firm growth, the podcast where ambitious law firms learn how to grow with confidence, clarity, and consistency. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, here with Keith Dyer, law firm CMO and founder of Lexgrow. Keith helps practices across the country move beyond referrals and guesswork to build real, sustainable systems for growth. Keith, welcome back. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about why a law firm's growth might get kind of stalled and how we can sort of restart the momentum. We'll diagnose some common reasons that law firms sort of hit plateaus and how to move forward. So let's start here. What are some early warning signs that a firm's growth is beginning to stall?
I think just not seeing an increase in cases from quarter to quarter. I would be careful about a monthly evaluation. I would look more at a quarter or half a year, 6-month evaluation to know if you think things are getting stagnant. And I guess, do you want to dive into some of the reasons why that happens?
Yeah, I would love to. If you give me just a handful of reasons that you've seen of how and why law firms kind of get stuck.
The number one ways they get stuck is when they have marketing vendors or personnel who have limited knowledge on how to actually scale. So that's one of the main ones. The other one is when they are ignoring branding and they're not trying to grow. They didn't start off with a foundation of not only doing direct response or digital marketing where they expect a direct response, but they've ignored the branding side. And so now it's catching up with them because you have to think about it. At any given time, there's only so many people looking for a certain type of law firm services in a given area, right? So maybe 2% of the population at any given time is looking for a personal injury lawyer. So those cases are taken up, right? And so if you're not getting your share or more each month, then that's a problem. And so you could have, if you're not branding, then you're going to hit a wall with that because people aren't thinking of you without, going to Google. You want people to think of you before they ever go to Google. So that's one thing. And I think the limitation often of marketing personnel or managers and directors, and I'm not saying that all managers or directors of marketing are like this. There's plenty that know a lot, but maybe they just reach their level of ability on where they are with, scaling the firm. And there's a need for a greater understanding and strategy that maybe they don't have. So those are a couple of reasons why. Oftentimes, too, I see firms get stagnant in their growth because their internal systems cannot handle the amount of, so let's say they've been successful with the marketing and their internal systems now, they are not handling the additional new cases. And so they have to pull back on marketing because they're starting to waste money because they can't actually execute and get to payment. So you see that problem often in law firms. I see that a lot. Unfortunately, that's one of the biggest reasons. So those are, some of the main things. I think also not having a correct budget, not having a budget that is big enough, or not having a budget that is thought through, where you know how much to allocate to digital means and how much you should allocate toward branding as a firm grows. That can cause stagnation as well.
Yeah, and I could see identifying the true cause of the growth slowdown could be difficult for firm leaders, especially because this isn't, we talked about a little bit in our first episode that, they're lawyers first. This isn't their world. This isn't generally what they do. How can law firm leaders really start to identify that true cause of the growth slowdown instead of maybe just sort of like grasping at straws?
Well, knowing where cases are coming from in general, seeing what makes the tide rise and what doesn't, understanding and learning all of that, and listening to the people that you hire that are around you that are better at what you do, having some sort of understanding of attribution, like, okay, we've seen a reduced number of, cases coming from pay-per-click. Why is that? And being able to diagnose things like that and understand, okay, well, that's happening because of whatever external factor or internal factor. They need to understand what their cost per acquisition is, where cases are coming from, where they're not coming from, and having a clear strategy. Not having that will cause them to stagnate often.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time. I also think that firm owners this is the huge mistake. Firm owners don't understand their intake process, because that's the most important process in the entire firm in terms of business. So we could be driving all the leads in the world, but if something happens in that intake department, like somebody goes on vacation or they leave or they're gone for some extended period for sickness or a phone number breaks, you'll see dramatic, decreases in the cases that are coming in. And what their first reaction is to come and look back at marketing and going, the marketing's not working. And you're like, the marketing doesn't change that drastically. It's not like there's something else going on.
Right.
So you've got to be constantly auditing and diagnosing the systems. Who's answering the phone? Do the phone numbers work? Are the correct phone numbers on the landing page? You also need to be going into CallRail or some system where you can evaluate phone calls, in particular, where they're coming from, and which ones became clients and which ones were, just random calls or calls in to find out about the status of someone's case. So having a system to diagnose all that will prevent you from stagnation most of the time if that's the problem. But you got to have your eye on all these things to see where things are going wrong. It's like flying a plane, and you got different, gauges that show you what's happening to keep you from crashing or going too fast or not getting off the runway quick enough. A lot of times you have to get off the runway, to make sure that you have enough money to get off the runway. So you have to have enough gas in the plane to get off the runway. So that's some of the things that we think about.
Absolutely. No, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And any internal bottlenecks are always going to stall growth. It just is it's harder to spot, right?
Yeah. In another episode, we talked about that conversion chain and just kind of having your eyes on all these pieces and knowing how they work is what's going to be. Knowing all that and understanding it, engaging it, and managing it is the responsibility of the modern law firm owner to grow. The ones that want to grow and scale, they need to understand the entire process, have ways to gauge the success of these processes, and have KPIs and things for their folks. But a lot of times lawyers are not great business people. They're extremely brilliant and smart, but they've been trained to be lawyers. They don't train this stuff in law school.
Right.
So they come out and they have to learn. And that's what we're here to do, is try to help them learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening, KPI, that's a key performance indicator. Some people know that, some people don't. In our world, we know that stuff, but some people don't. So
that's true. Thank you for saying that, because you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no problem. I've had people ask me that many times, so that's why I wanted to throw that in there. You kind of touched on this a little bit but do firms tend to mistake activity like posting or running ads for actual progress? Or they're just like, well, we got all this stuff up there, but it doesn't necessarily mean progress.
No, you've got to see increase in cases. Like if you're doing marketing and you're not getting an increase in phone calls and leads and cases, ultimately signing cases, then you do need to step back and go, okay, what are we doing here? Like, what makes sense? I mean, people they chase shiny objects and they think we put this in place or that in place or this in place, it's going to change things. When what they really need to do is go back to like the Bill Belichick, the Patriot way. We block, we tackle, we do the fundamentals. When we get the fundamentals down and we're really good at the fundamentals, then we test things and try things, right? And so they get caught up in chasing shiny objects. It's the worst thing I see from firms. I have firms that come in and they get frustrated with me because I don't want to try this or I don't want to try that. And I'm like, we can try that down the road, or we can try that this year, but you've got other things you need to concentrate on to fix that are important pillars of marketing. And if you don't have those down, you're going to fail. I don't care what else you think might work.
Yeah, I think anyone who's ever worked in marketing for a company too knows that boss or owner or somebody who wants to be a part of all of it has all these big ideas, but you're just like, oh man, that's not a good idea. That's not.
Yeah, it's the whole visionary versus implementer, the whole EOS thing, right? It's like you got to ground yourself or have people that ground you, but you also do have the responsibility in this day and age, especially, of testing things, because there's just so much coming at us.
Yes, very true.
It's just, wow.
It's like thousands of ads per day we see now, right? Isn't this some crazy figure like that?
Yeah, thousands of ads. And it feels like to me every day I'm introduced to a new AI tool or a new
It's
company
true.
that says, hey, you don't need this person or these processes. This will handle it all for you. And you're
Mhm.
like, you have to step back though and go, okay, wait a minute. Maybe we can try some of that. But we can't just toss a system out that's already working and replace it. You have to have the be able to be nimble enough or whatever to be able to test some things while you're, covering the foundations.
Do you have a success story of a firm that you helped overcome a growth stall?
Yeah. I work with a firm here that I'm really close with, and we had a desire to grow his firm from 3 million a year to get to 8 figures. And we started our journey out by him bringing me on as his fractional CMO, and it was kind of the genesis of Lexgrow, really. And we said the first thing we want to do is that we knew we had certain skill sets, each of us. He was a very good business person, business owner. He had a really good mindset to grow. He's also a very good marketer as well. He knew that I knew marketing. He said, come in and help me organize everything and let's learn how to do this. So we went out and sought the help of masterminds and coaches across the country. And we joined a couple of them, and we also did our own testing. Bottom line is we grew his firm. We've been working here now together for 4 years, and we went from 3 million a year, and then we got to 5 million a year, and then 8 million a year, and we're on track to be 10 to 12 million a year.
Wow, that's impressive.
And you know what it was, man? It was literally blood, sweat, and tears, and
Mhm.
learning
Mhm.
and traveling all over the country and going to these things and really rolling up our sleeves and meeting and having extreme intentionality. I mean, extreme intentionality. How do we put systems in place to measure the success, et cetera? And I built this firm or my company based upon the help of helping this firm. It gets a little frustrating because you come out and you meet up with owners that don't have the same skill sets. It doesn't mean they're not brilliant people or whatever, but some people just don't understand the amount of intentionality. Like you cannot want to build your law firm to be that successful. You can't just turn it over to, oh, well, Susie, the marketing director, handles marketing. That's just not going to work. You've
Mhm.
got to know how much money you need to borrow. You've got to do projections. You've got to manage this stuff very closely to get that kind of success. It's
Mhm.
extreme intentionality.
Intentionality. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's hard for all of us to do, but you've got to set up skill. I get up every morning and I say, okay, and I'm not always good at this, by the way, but this is what my intentions are, is to have a system of intentionality where I go, okay, this is what today looks like. And that supports what my week's goals look like. And my week's goals support my month's goals, and my month's goals support my annual goals. And all the way down to what you do every day is what matters.
And once a firm kind of figures out what's broken, maybe there's multiple things that are broken. How can they prioritize what to fix first? Are there certain you mentioned pillars? Are there certain pillars that you always feel you got to get these right first?
Yeah. So I mentioned before that branding is, if you ignore it, that's a bad thing. But even worse is not having the right digital presence, because then you're not capturing the existing demand that's in the marketplace.
Right.
So you have to fundamentally start with tapping into that, because if you can't tap into that in a way that makes sense, then you're going to struggle with getting consistent cases, right? You'd be relying completely on referrals, which is not in the beginning sustainable for most firms. There are anomalies, and I don't want people saying, oh, I built my, maybe you did. That's great. Your circumstances are different than 80% of the firms that are out there, which you have to have a terrific digital presence, build a brand at the same time so they support each other, right? And then over time, as the firm grows, your mix of how much you spend will change, but you've got to have that, to answer your question, you've got to have that digital presence down, and you've got to have the right vendors and or people managing that for you, or you're going to fail.
When you say digital presence, what do you think is most important for law firms?
So that depends upon the practice area, because of
Ah,
the way people buy different types of legal services. If I'm injured in a car wreck, the first thing that I'm going to do, if I don't know a lawyer that comes to the top of my head because they were branded me, I'm going to go to Google and search for one, and I'm
right.
going to look for ratings, and I'm going to pick up the phone. And if they don't answer the phone, I'm going to go to the next one. And if they don't answer the phone or well, I don't like it, I'm going to go to the next one. So that's their process. But if I was an estate planning attorney or an immigration attorney, the process that people would choose me would be different, right? It would be a longer process typically, especially for estate planning. It's a slower decision-making thing, right? So it's a different way that you market. And so digital marketing importance depends upon how, for instance, for immigration law, Facebook is just a terrific way to market. I mean, it just really is. But Google is still very important there as well. So it can just kind of change. We actually created a downloadable guide on the most important digital or the most important marketing channels per practice area that people can actually come and grab. And so they'll see, okay, well, if I'm an immigration firm, I need to be focused on Facebook, Google, it's at LSA, whatever, and it's all there. I'm not going to get into the details of that now, but that's important. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, that's great. For anyone listening who feels like they've kind of, gone a little bit stagnant, that they're not growing as much as they would like or once were, what's one thing that they can look at right away to evaluate their situation?
I would look at where they are with cases for the past 3 to 6 months, and then where cases are coming from. If they were growing before, did that somehow stagnate or change? They change a strategy with pay-per-click or a spend? I would dig into the details of all that. Oftentimes, firms will make dramatic changes to something that's working, and then they're like, "Well, everything stopped working." I'm like, "Yeah, you switched vendors, and the new vendor sucks." I mean, I don't know how you don't see that, or maybe you don't want to admit it because you made the decision. There's too much knee jerking and jumping around. Like, get in. If you have vendors, then you need to hold them responsible for what they're doing, but not just fire them right away if something's not going well. If they've done a good job for you, they likely still can. It could be something else that's causing a problem. So you really have to go back to that conversion chain I was talking about and figure out, okay, in this whole chain of things, what's going wrong? Are our ads, or have we changed ad copy and it's not working anymore? Do we have poor targeting on our meta ads? Do we have poor targeting on our Google? Whatever it might be.
Yeah, it could be a lot of different things.
That's kind of a general answer, but it could be anything.
Yeah, it was a general question, so it all worked out.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning into the Circle of Trust. This episode gave you some clarity. Make sure you follow the show so you never miss a new episode. If you're ready to build a predictable pipeline, scale your firm a smart way, and also if you want to get in on those resources that Keith mentioned earlier, head over to lexgrow.com. You can also connect with Keith on LinkedIn. Share with him what you've been working on. He's always very interested. Keith, really good stuff. Really enjoyed the time. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.